personnel involved in the selection and maintenance of school district library materials. We have advised the district to err on the side of caution. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McKinley. It appears that we have quite a few citizens tonight who would like to address the board, but I wanted to read something before we start that about the expectation of the audience today. The expectation today is that you will maintain decorum through this entire meeting, through all citizen comment, as well as when we get to the business of the board. You'll behave in a professional and a respectful manner towards each other, as well as staff in the room. If you need to have a full conversation, you are more than welcome to walk out of the room and have that conversation. If there is any clapping, cheering, yelling, or talking too loudly, I will bang the gavel and I will ask for quiet with a warning. If the same folks continue, they will be escorted out of the building by one of the deputies, and I really hope we don't have to do that. So let's please be respectful to everybody who's going to speak today. So let's keep this orderly so everyone can hear and that the board can do the work of the district. Please keep all this in mind as we proceed with the meeting today. And now we're going to start with citizen comment. Public input is vital to the improvement of our school district, and because we value public input, all comments will be heard at the beginning of the meeting prior to action on agenda items. We welcome your remarks and request that they are delivered in a respectful manner. Most often, your remarks will be listened to without comment from the board members or superintendent. This does not mean it is listened to with any less intensity or concern. Where appropriate, the school board, superintendent, or staff will investigate your comments and respond. We thank you for taking the time to having the concern to make our district better. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes. And first up, we have Patrick Eaton. When you approach the podium, if you would please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Patrick Eaton, 5370 Galambo Street, Northport, Florida. And I'm Patrick Eaton. I'm a gay, I'm a husband, I'm a parent and a son, an uncle and a friend. One of the most recent books really hit me hard about being banned, Where the Wild Things Are. I adopted my son 36 years ago. He spent many years in foster care, was adopted by 3 families first, mothers and fathers, and they rejected him. They threw him back in the system. And many of his therapists recommended this book for him because he did act out. So I think it was a very beneficial book for youth and for their mental health. And at that point, if he would have had books available with same-sex parents, would have been helpful too. There are books now that are being banned from that. I think they need to be available to improve our youth's mental health. My son's therapist and state advocate were both in favor of putting him in my home. And in fact, the state advocate, who had clout from the state, wanted to put more children in my home once he met me. My point is the resources books published to improve mental health are taken away. The people who are taking away these books are not professional educators. That's one big concern. And often they are hate groups who target BGLTQ families or people of color. Banning books empowers bullying and hate groups. Books examining racism and Black history are also banned. And even Anne Frank's book was banned, which is very surprising. At one point, I was speaking to a group, and one man asked me if I was raising my son to be gay. That is impossible and was not my intention. Just like reading a book about gay characters will not turn the child gay. It is impossible. And you had mentioned about error on caution. I know To Kill a Mockingbird is not on the banned book list, but I just talked to a friend, a mother, Saturday night, and her daughter was ready to do a report, wanted to use that book, and the teacher wouldn't allow it. And I'm not blaming the teachers. They're afraid for their jobs. The teachers, the librarians, are afraid, and they shouldn't be, because I have so much respect for teachers. They're educators, and their hands are tied, and they're living in fear. And for me, I'm actually the president of PFLAG, and we support parents and friends of gays and lesbians. We have a support group once a month, and if people are interested, I have a sign-up sheet. Please see me afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eaton. Next, we have Marvin Covey. Marvin, if you please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Marvin Covey, 2300 Aaron Street, Port Charlotte, Florida. My wife and I moved down here in 2011. I have a gay son in New York City. He got married in Central Park. And I just want to put my 2 cents worth in that there are people that have gay sons. And I hope you guys can do what you can. I know the governor's putting this stuff out, and I hope we can replace him.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Betty Munford, and if you'd please state your name and address for the record.
Betty Munford, 22375 Edgewater Drive, Port Charlotte. Currently, of all the books banned in the U.S., Florida bans 40%. This is a dismal statistic. Our nation has gone through banning days before. Forbidding teaching enslaved people to read is one example. Banning accounts of the mistreatment of Native Americans and Japanese internment in the 1960s is another. Eventually, those efforts were thwarted, and democracy reigned. I love the USA. I struggle every day in every way to make the USA remain true to the ideals laid down in the 1700s. It is for that reason that I come to you today, the Port Charlotte School Board. You are the group devoted to educating our children. You are in charge of equipping the next generation with the intelligence to meet the challenges of tomorrow. It is important to present historical truths, and that sometimes includes misdeeds. But without acknowledging past mistakes, there's little chance that bad behavior will not be repeated. I speak for many in this county and urge you to oppose the ill-purposed rulings to ban important authors and their books. Let's tell our progeny that when they came with malice, we said no.
Thank you, Ms. Mumford. Next, we have Sharon Whitehill. No, you don't want to speak? Okay, thank you. Next, we have Colleen Clopton. Next, we have Jeff Lustig. Okay.
Hi, I'm Jeff Lustig, 23213 Elmira Boulevard, Port Charlotte. This morning I was able to observe a workshop that you had. It was fascinating. You were looking at words from surveys that you watching, and you found that community was one of the big words that you had. I hope that you would also put inclusivity and integrity. You may be asked to follow the law, but if a law is unjust and you find it morally incorrect, it is your responsibility to gate that law. Such as a person who, a military person, my father was a Korean War navigator. If he was given an order that was illegal, it is his responsibility not to follow it. I have a gay son who came to me the other day and said, you know, I didn't know that there was such a thing as loving another man when I was 7 or 8 years old. And it was through books of that I was able to show him that he could have a life and love the person that he cared about. It's a very difficult time. We're banning books, burning them, giving them away at the library in Punta Gorda. I never thought that I would see that again. I remember when, I'm old enough to remember when people were put in jail for just being homosexual. In Stonewall in 1974, homosexuals rose up. Are we not going to tell their stories? Are we going to delete them from the history? Are we going to do that with slavery? Are we going to negate the contribution that African Americans gave to this country? if we don't, you can only learn from history. Public discourse is important. It's your responsibility to guard this for our future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Paul Platt, and if you'd please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Paul Platt. I'm from 146 Valdeva Street, Punta Gorda. I'm a retired teacher. I'm a grandfather of a granddaughter who graduated from Charlotte County Schools, as well as a daughter. And so I have a commitment to the school board, and I know a lot of you sitting on this board. A law doesn't make a law by itself is not always good. A law by itself should not always be obeyed. Sometimes it needs to be challenged. In 1939, Germany passed the Nuremberg Laws. In the United States, from 1872 to 1962, the Jim Crow laws were passed. Now, these laws were passed by legitimate lawmakers whose sole purpose was to control, demean, destroy, and hide a specific group of people. These people were not dangerous or rebellious. Their only crime was that they were different. If those laws were challenged from the very beginning, perhaps thousands of those lives, hundreds of thousands of those lives would have been saved. Millions more who survive might have been able to survive a much better life. But they were obeyed. Today, our governor is pushing laws that attack specific populations, including people of color and the LGBTQ population. He's attacking them not because they're dangerous to themselves or their communities, but because they're different, because he does not understand them, and it appears that he doesn't want to understand. It is a sad day when we make laws based on fear and ignorance. There's no evidence anywhere that should lead us to believe that reading a book about LGBTQ characters or stories will lead that child into becoming one of them. Just isn't there. However, by not reading those, we can guarantee there are going to be children who grow up to be adults who will bully and attack those very people. What we know is that our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ have been good neighbors, active professionals, good citizens, good parents. They've been firefighters, police, soldiers, sailors, airmen, and airwomen. They pay taxes. They teach. They write books. They make music, contribute to the fine arts. They're people, just like us. They are our daughters, our sons, our granddaughters, our grandsons. They are mothers, fathers, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews. They are Christian, Muslim, Jews, and Buddhists. They are neighbors. They are our neighbors, and they deserve the respect and love as we would want them to respect and love us. Your lawyer's right. To obey this law is the easiest, least expensive approach. It'll be much more a heavy burden on this board. But the law is wrong. The laws are unjust. The law is dangerous to the education of the children.
Thank you, Mr.
And the
Platt.
sovereignty of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Platt.
Thank you for letting me talk.
Next, we have Francis Vitale, and if you please state your name and address for the record.
Francis Vitale, 25225 Rampart Boulevard, Punta Gorda, Florida. Thank you, distinguished board members and superintendent. The censoring of books and LGBTQ plus children and youth run counter to the Charlotte County Public Schools student parent rights, which states students possess not only the right to an education, but the rights of citizenship as well. Federal and state law prohibits from adopting any policy or rule that infringes upon or waives the rights of freedoms afforded to students by the United States Constitution. This stance is also shared by other library colleagues and the American Library Association, which has in place protocols for entertaining informal complaints, formal challenges, and concerns for reconsideration of library books and/or materials in schools. In censoring LGBTQ plus books, and any books for that matter, we are banning, challenging, and denying children and teens who may identify with those books. Books are challenged because they do offer different perspectives and viewpoints. And as authority figures, we send the message that it is not normal or accepted for students to be themselves. What you are proposing in the name of education is not only censorship, but microaggressions, microassaults, and discriminatory practices against the very students that we profess to educate with equity and equality. The American Library Association strongly condemns acts of censorship and intimidation, and I quote from their position statement. We are committed to defending the constitutional rights of all individuals, of all ages, to the use of resources and services of libraries. We champion and defend the freedom to speak and the freedom to read as promised by the First Amendments of the Constitution of the United States. We stand opposed to censorship and any effort to coerce belief, suppress opinion, or punish those whose expression does not conform to what is deemed to be orthodox in history, politics, or belief. Libraries manifest the promises of the First Amendment by making available the widest possible range of viewpoints, opinions, and ideas so that every person has the opportunity to freely read and consider information and ideas regardless of their content or viewpoint of the author or reader. So, let us be a respectfully educated community and honor the right to read and the freedom of speech to thrive within the education system so our students may take on their future challenges with integrity, compassion, and human understanding. And lastly, as Neil Postman said, our children are living messages we send to a time that we will never see. Let us communicate to our children now messages of their rights and freedom to be themselves without the need to censor anyone or any book.
Thank you, Mrs. Vitale. Thank you. All right, next we have Michael Hirsch. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Michael Hirsch, 26181 Stillwater Circle, Punta Gorda, Florida. I'm a Vietnam combat veteran who had multiple opportunities to die for my country after taking an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. I continue to honor that oath by speaking here this evening. I'm the author of a book detailing the intersection of American soldiers with the Holocaust and Nazi Germany. The banning of books and discrimination against gays and Jews is where that all began. I currently volunteer with the group Florida Jews for a Secular Democracy. We add a Jewish voice to the movement, protecting the constitutional right to separation of church and state. We are concerned that you have willingly joined the march of Christian nationalists down the road, inevitably leading to coerced student prayer, harassment of gays, and erosion of First Amendment rights. Here are our policy recommendations tonight for this board. The requirements of House Bills 1467 and 1069 give parents and residents inordinate power to challenge books and demand their removal from district schools. But neither the bills nor the Department of Education's criteria for reviewing challenges allows materials to be removed based on religious objections. Nevertheless, many challenges against the LGBTQ-themed books statewide, including here in Charlotte County, are based on religious objections. We therefore request that you put in place a policy and process to prevent removal of materials from our county's public schools based on religious objections. Second, implementation of House Bill 1557 risks creating increased discrimination against gay school administrators, teachers, and students. We request you put in place a policy assuring LGBTQ plus educators and students that they are both safe and welcome in our school district. It's bad enough that this board has allowed our school superintendent to implement these two ill-advised laws, but he went farther down the road to fascism than even these laws ordain. He ordered that challenged books not only be removed from classrooms, but from school libraries on advice of the attorney so they can err on the side of caution. That's cowardly. You could have gone the other way and said, stop holding classes in the library and leave the books on the shelves. That needs to be remediated by you board members immediately at this meeting. If you continue to ban books, I'd like to hereby lodge my own personal request. You have in the Charlotte High School Library a book that tells the disgusting story of two especially slutty teenage sisters who were so annoyed with their parents that they schemed to get dad drunk, then have sex with them, and they get pregnant. That's a repulsive story to keep on the shelves within reach of our impressionable young children. Therefore, I demand you immediately remove all copies of this book, the King James Version of the Holy Bible.
Thank. We are not going to react. Thank you, Mr. Hirsch. Next up, we have, I'm probably not going to say your name correctly, and I apologize, Gurio Vincetti. Please correct me when you get to the stand, and if you would please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Gurio Vincenti. I reside in 2131 Broad Point, Punta Gorda. I'm honored to be able to address this fine audience over here. I came to the United States in 1966 with my parents and a younger sister. I was barely 18 years old. Did not speak a word of the native language over here. Neither did my family. I went to high school and graduated in 68, 2 years after I came over here. They sent me back a year. I joined the U.S. Navy in 1969 to see the world. The point of my talking today is the reason I still speak here, speak like this, because I'm a college graduate. You won't believe this. And the main reason I wanted to talk over here is because English, Massachusetts, where we moved, was the primary language. Like I said, I repeat, we did not speak. I am a very strong proponent of freedom of speech. Book banning. Sorry, I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. I am 100%. Second, I need to breathe. Book learning, book banning is fascist, and was used in my country to subjugate the population politically and religiously for many, many years. I would strongly suggest that to anyone that you fight. This is our right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Deborah Sharon, and if you please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Deborah Sharon. I live at 23301 Kalina Way, Port Charlotte, Florida. I am an author. I am a gay woman, and I am 67 years old. I have spent my whole life fighting for things to be normal. I try to explain to people all the time, you're straight, I'm gay. You have one heart, I have one heart. We all are the same. When you take these books from the children, they can't read about themselves. You got a book, it's about all straight people. I raised a boy that was not mine for 15 years. He's a straight boy. He's still a straight boy. He's 29 years old. Don't blame gay people for things that happen to children. These books that I write, I want all children to read because both children are in here, because both children are in the same schools. Don't make our children, well, that's a gay kid, well, that's a straight kid. That's not it. They're just kids. And if you take the books that I write, it's about children that have lived through, and you've all been there, divorce, drug abuse, alcoholism, I don't care what kid it is, straight, gay, purple, green, yellow. They all go through the same thing. But if you take these children and say, these are straight kids' books and these are gay kids' books, and you got to separate them. They're all the same kid. Stop making them different kids. They're all the same. You need to leave all the gay books in the schools. I was 17 years old when I found out I was gay because there was nobody like me. A straight friend of mine took me to a gay club. First time in my life I realized why I was so weird all those years. Because you made us be separate. Do not let our children be separate. Let them grow up in the same house as a gay child, as a straight child. We all have the same heart. We all have the same goal. We just want to be happy. So your heart says that you're supposed to marry a man. Cool. Your heart says it's supposed to marry a woman. Great. We're all the same people. Stop separating our children. Stop separating our books from our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Robert Moran, and if you please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Robert Moran. I live at 1483 Red Oak Lane, Port Charlotte, Florida. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. I had a gay son. I took him to Little League, took him to the, teach him how to play basketball, all those things. None of them worked. I didn't understand he was gay. I just didn't understand it. And then at 18, he came out that he was gay, and I just couldn't believe it. It was like it was my fault. Well, thank goodness I came to terms and to accept him and love him as he was. He was gay. He died at 33 years old from bacterial meningitis, which has nothing to do with being gay. And I still miss my son. Now, I have been to Key West 25 times. I've been to Fantasy Fest 5 times. I'm heterosexual. I don't drink, smoke, or do drugs. What the heck is wrong with me that I like Key West so much? It's a non-judgmental atmosphere. I can sit on the Duval Street and have coffee and get into conversations with the most interesting people. Extremely non-judgmental, just like Jesus taught.
Thank you. Next up, we have Linda Richardson, and if you please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Linda Richardson, 200 Harbor Walk Drive, Unit 132 in Punta Gorda. As a reading buddy at the Boys and Girls Club and as an English language learner tutor, first at East Elementary and now at Punta Gorda Middle School, I want to thank you for supporting community efforts to help students read at grade level. This increases their likelihood of graduating from high school successfully. Reading is fundamental to all subjects, and seeing yourself affirmed or missing from the books available to you has a significant impact on both student self-esteem and interest. I was extremely disappointed to learn that the materials referring to the members of the LGBTQ+ population were removed in Charlotte County schools. We are now leading the state with the most restrictive and damaging purge of learning materials. This position harms all students and teachers. Creating fear and making subjects taboo increases the students' curiosity to learn about what the adults will not talk about. It is detrimental in the area of sex education, resulting in increased teen pregnancies and the spread of STDs. In the area of Black history and LGBTQ+ subjects or characters, it harms a student's self-esteem. It emboldens bullies, reduces student interest, and leads to underachievement and the risk of depression and suicide. Members of the LGBTQ+ community were already at high risk, and they need the support of both the district and this community. I ask that this board again regain the positive position we had in our state before the most recent direction. and that we support all students with decisions that are scientifically based and which have the input and support of teachers and students. There is a process for parents who want to exclude their child from certain materials which is not being used, and it should be. Let all students have access to affirming materials. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kristen Reese, and if you please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Kristen Reese, 15 Ocean Drive, Punta Gorda. I'm a mom of 2 boys that attend Punta Gorda Middle School. They've been in the Charlotte County school system since kinder. And we've had, up until recently, a very positive experience. We chose public school over private school because we believed at the time it offered the best education for our sons. I am extremely disappointed in how the law is currently being interpreted by the board. Diversity in literature matters. Representation in literature matters. At the most basic level, I would ask that the board consider renowned educator Rudine Sims Bishop's phrase, windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors, when thinking about how children experience books. Importantly, window books offer a view into someone else's experience. In line with that, the sliding glass door book goes even further, allowing the reader to deeply connect with and enter the story, experiencing it as the character themselves does. When children read books featuring characters from diverse backgrounds and cultures who have experiences that are different than their own, they develop a greater understanding of the world and greater empathy towards others. Just as imperative, a mirror book is a story that reflects a child's own identity. When books don't serve as mirrors, it sends a powerful message to our children that they are devalued in society. By removing books with LGBTQ+ characters, you're depriving some children of the ability to form a positive self-image and sending a message to others that these people are less than. To quote Peter DeWitt, a former elementary school principal turned author, the dumbing down of America isn't due to watered down curriculum as much as it is the direct result of parents, leaders, and educators who choose to ban books because somehow they don't agree with what is written in these books. Reading is supposed to expand our ideas and thoughts, not coincide with an individual's confirmation bias. Whether we are black, white, conservative, liberal, straight, gay, or trans, we should see representations in the books that are offered at schools. There is nothing wrong with a parent making a choice about books for their own child, but there is a very big problem when the choice gets taken away for all students. Having said this, let me ask each of you to think deeply about the agenda behind this law and to ask yourselves if the district's aggressive interpretation and response to such is a reflection of the core values and principles of education or a knee-jerk response out of fear. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Carol Boltolin, and I'm sure I messed that up, so if you would please correct me when you get to the podium, and if you'd state your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Carol Bordelon. I live at 26062 Ancuda Drive, Punta Gorda. As a caring citizen and a taxpayer, I want to remind you that 43% of our taxes go to the public school system. I would like to see more focus on core studies taught, like math, science, English, reading and writing. We need to improve in these areas. I support the parents' rights in monitoring and removing of any book, method, or material that attempts to introduce age-inappropriate gender sexual content in a public school. Parents are free to expose their children to anything they like outside the public school. Support the current laws in Florida for this, as well as no CRT and changing of history to be taught. I do support the state law, teachers, the superintendent, and the school board to diligently lead and protect children in our district. Thank you.
Next, we have Ed Conrad, and if you please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ed Conrad. I live at 24300 Airport Road, Unit 109. I am a retired clinical psychologist and professor emeritus in the UW system after 35 years. And so I think I'm probably addressing more of the people here in this room than the board, but I want to first put some context on this. In the language of conspiracy theorists, this whole discussion about banned books is a red herring or a false flag. It's designed to divide us, keep us from talking to each other, keep us from finding common ground. To the extent that the school board goes along with that, they're party to that. So, with that said, to those of you who are opposed to excuse me, who are opposed to banning books, it did not work in Nazi Germany. It did not work in the Soviet Union. It has not worked in Russia today, and it won't work here. And here, it's even easier than those times, because I imagine everybody in the room has one of these. You want to read a banned book? You can find it in 2 minutes. Your kids can find it in 10 seconds. So what are we talking about? Are we preventing people from learning about a world, learning about the world they live in? Secondly, for those of you who do favor banning books and so forth, if you have not taught your kids to be afraid of different ideas, of different people with different looks, with different styles, color of skin, by the time they're 8, you've pretty much lost. Their peers are their primary influence. And that includes not their teachers. So in terms of that, I would add one final thing about banning books. Please keep it up, because the more you do that, the more appeal those books have to the kids you're trying to protect. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Hal Trago. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hal Trejo, pronouns they, them, and theirs, 3740 Tamiami Trail, Port Charlotte, Florida. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, including the board. I know it's going to be a long meeting and appreciate everyone's attention. I also really look forward to continued conversations so that we can work together to make sure all students are supported. I want to share some of my story with you here today. When I was 14 years old, I was ready to die. I had a plan, I had the means. If you had asked me if I honestly thought I would make it to being in front of you here today, 26 years old, I would have said I wouldn't make it past 15. Something so big was missing from my life, and I didn't have the words to name it. I hated myself so much, I threw myself into unsafe relationships, unsafe spaces, and an eating disorder that got so bad that would have killed me alone if I continued. I was starving for something that I didn't even know existed. And when I was 19 years old, I learned what it meant to be non-binary, to be transgender. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to live. I wanted to survive. I wanted to keep going. And if you haven't experienced that kind of thing before, imagine the scene in The Wizard of Oz where Dorothy pushes open the door and she goes from a black and gray house to Technicolor. That's what it felt like. It felt like I could finally see the world and see myself in it. And this conversation is about more than what content students should be able to access in schools. We are a country going through a reckoning over whether we will let the fear of the unknown rule us, or if we will find wonder and joy in the challenge of seeing the world in full color. If I had known what transness was, if I had been able to read a book where I could see my feelings and experiences mirrored, I could have found community and connection rather than starvation and depression. This is what we're fighting for. This is what we're talking about with our young people. We want to live in a world where no one ever feels so strange, so wrong, so different, that the pathway out of this life is clearer than the pathway through this life. CDC research shows that in Charlotte County alone, there's over 2,000 LGBTQ+ students in high schools. And according to the Trevor Project, 45% of those youth will seriously consider attempting suicide. That same report found that communities and schools that are supportive of these youth drastically reduce suicidality. Representation is suicide prevention. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate and continue working with everyone.
Thank you. Next, we have Lisa Trejo. State your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Lisa Trejo. I live at 3740 Tamiami Trail in Port Charlotte. Been here for 25 years. I've raised 2 kids here, one that is a product of some of the Charlotte County school system. Both of them are queer. Both of them have moved out of state to be safe from an oppressive government. I'm also the co-founder of All Rainbow and Allied Youth, which is Charlotte County's only LGBTQ youth nonprofit. And I'm really just here to let folks know, let you know that you do have a resource here if you want to be educated on rights and freedoms and different concepts of sexuality and identity. We're happy. In fact, we're desperate to bring that information to you. We used to be able to do that in this county. No more. That is a loss. That is a shame. If you just shut out ideas that you don't agree with, that's not education. That's a ban. We won't stand for that. We're asking to work with you. And I know the states up there is up there and has rules and regulations and laws and the HBs, but we're talking about children's lives. I know you have jobs and positions and responsibilities, but we're talking about children's lives today. And those children need representation. They need to find themselves in books, and you need to work toward that. Obviously, we're not calling for you to put books that would introduce harmful ideas, but books that introduce self-identity, come on, that's not harmful. And you know what? At Array, we get a lot of kids that come in and think, maybe I'm gay, maybe I'm queer, maybe I'm something. Help us figure it out. And we're accused of doing really terrible things to kids. We don't do those things. We support them, we give them answers, we give them truth and information, and we help them figure their path, figure it out. And you know what? I would say 5 times out of 5, those kids are like, when they age out of our group, are like, hey, I'm not gay, I'm not queer. That's great, but they understand who they are.
Thank you, Ms. Trejo. All right, next we have Christine Carlomany. Please state your name and address for the record.
Christine Carlomany in Gulf Cove. And I love anybody, everybody. I don't care who you love. I hold no malice for anyone for what they believe. But I believe that the school board should be interested in only mathematics, reading, English, writing, computer science, science, history, art, music, and the like. I believe that the school board should stay out of sexual orientations. I also believe that they should withhold nothing from the parents. That is not your job. Your job is to educate our children only. I do not give you my hard-earned tax monies to be getting in people's private lives. LGBTQ+ is a very small minority, and you can support them. But the rest of the children do not need to hear the disgusting, obscene pornography that is in some of the books that are being read. I believe you are pushing a woke agenda that none of your parents want. Please do your job only. Stay out of our children's pants, and thank you for your time.
All right, just a reminder, please keep comments and thoughts to yourself. If you need to have a conversation, please step in the hallway and do so. Next, we have David Kesselring. And if you please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Kesselring, 22182 Felton Ave, Port Charlotte. Been listening, and I've also been searching for these books that are so easily findable on the phone. I haven't been able to find anything, but apparently they're easy to find in an elementary school. I believe there's some criteria of what you can and can't include in public school libraries for elementary and middle school age children. Most of these children are extremely naive, and many are easily swayed. Most parents should be comfortable giving over temporary responsibility for their children to educational institutions which are mandated by many. Part of the solution to these types of problems is to make total school choice of #1 importance. Allow parents to have a certain amount of money to either donate to the public or private school of their choice. That way parents get to say what their children will or won't be exposed to. It seems simple. On another note, I can say something different tonight for a change. And this topic should be of concern to everybody attending this public meeting that cares about the law, accountability, and public access to public meetings. Florida Statute 286.011 provides for public meetings of this board to be open to the public at all times. It also states that no formal action shall be considered binding except as taken or made at such meeting. At your final budget hearing on September 11th, both the doors to the chambers were locked for this critical public meeting. Not only private citizens, but the press was even locked out. Your public information officer stated that the doors were locked for security purposes. Your fear of parents and others, even with armed deputies in the meeting room and usually near the doors, doesn't override state statute. No regulation, rule, or formal action shall be considered binding except as taken or made at such meeting. I believe your vote on the final budget was and is not binding because the doors to the meeting were locked and the public could not gain entry. Your meeting didn't fit the criteria of a public meeting as defined in State Statute 286.011. Maybe you should wake up. I'm asking verbally for a full investigation into this matter, and I'll be submitting a complaint in writing as well. On another note, my attempts to retrieve public records regarding these events were obstructed in numerous ways, which I believe were further violations of the Sunshine Law. This will also be concluded in my complaint. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Ralph Berry, and if you please state your name and address for the record when you get up to the podium.
My name's Ralph Barry from Portofino Drive, Punta Gorda. I attended a Charlotte School District focus group a while back. Only one other person, a retired psychologist, and I attended. There were only two of us at the meeting. I understand that probably only around 20 people total from our community attended the rest of the meetings. Not a valid or good representation. Do we know what these focus groups cost? That's one question. Is the district paying for this? If so, how much? And what was the purpose? And most important, was it worth it?
Thank you. Next, we have Dawn Mann, and if you please state your name and address for the record.
Dawn Mann, 439 MacArthur Drive, Port Charlotte. Many people have already gotten up and spoken so eloquently, and I really don't have much more to add to their remarks, but I would like to observe to you that legal advice is exactly that. It is advice. It is not binding. The law is obviously unclear. That's why it's subject to interpretation. And I would encourage you to interpret it bravely and boldly instead of erring on the side of excessive caution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ginny Dobreck. And you please state your name and address for the record.
Jenny Dobreck, 24048 Canal Street, Punta Gorda. I'm kind of assuming that all these conversations were brought about by H-Bill 241, which is entitled Parents' Bill of Rights. So I have read this bill, and I don't know how many people that have spoken here have actually read the bill, but I find nothing in it that talks about any books allowed or disallowed, giving any description of what is in the books or what books shouldn't be allowed in the school system. However, because it is entitled the Parents' Bill of Rights, it does say that a parent possesses an order to direct the education of his or her child and be informed about the child's educational programs. So if that's where the books that are so widely talked about today come into being, I really think that that is another subject, not part of this bill, because that would come under the actual books that our governor actually gave a list and said that they were the ones that were not being permitted in the schools or in the libraries. So, I mean, this parental rights is a bill. It passed. It's done. It's over. It passed. So if people want to have their opinions that they disagree, maybe they should go to the right source, because I don't think coming to the school board is the right source, because you're obligated to abide by rules in the state of Florida, just like I am. So the bill passed. So that's it.
Thank you. Next, we have Jason Brunt. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jason Brunt, I'm a homeowner here in Port Charlotte. I want to thank you for allowing me to address you this evening. I stand here as a concerned parent representing hundreds of parents and students who share my concerns about the current situations in our schools. Our children's innocence is precious, and we must protect it from the proliferation of inappropriate materials driven by the adult culture war that is seeping into our educational systems. I would like to revisit a topic I raised previously, the rainbow safe stickers that have become prevalent in our classrooms. Last time, I was told that the school board meeting was not the place to have the conversation. But I respectfully disagree. I've taken the time to write each of you, and that has fallen on deaf ears. So here I am today to emphasize that these concerns are not isolated, but shared by many parents and students in our district. The rainbow flags and stickers, which became oh too common, have a history that needs to be acknowledged. In 1978, Gilbert Baker created the pride flag as a response to certain religious beliefs, as a contradiction to what many people believe was God's promise, and its colors were chosen with a specific message. It was designed to include everybody but straight people. Now, while it has evolved to be more inclusive, as you'll see waving around this room, there remains a glaring absence of representation for heterosexual individuals. To claim that these stickers are meant to be inclusive,
please. Go ahead.
claim these stickers are meant to be inclusive for everyone is a disservice to both our intelligence and the countless instances where they have, in fact, been divisive. In an educational environment that should foster inclusivity and equality for all students, these stickers contradict our own district policies. They have led to instances where students have been harassed by their teachers and where students hesitate to confide in their educators and counselors because they display politicized and controversial stickers on their doors and classrooms. I conducted a survey amongst many students, including my own children, asking if they would feel safe seeking guidance from a teacher with such stickers on their doors, and the resounding answer was no. It is clear that these stickers do not align with their values, and they actively convey a divisive message. If our shared goal is to truly create an inclusive and unbiased learning environment, then we must reconsider the presence of these divisive stickers and divisive clubs in our K through 12 school systems. Let us parents be the one to guide our children's moral and ethical development without undue influence. Your role is that of educators and administrators entrusted with our tax dollars. Please focus on providing the fundamental education we entrust you with without imposing political beliefs and personal beliefs on our children. I want to be clear. Our concern is that the presence of these divisive stickers and clubs may lead to an environment reminiscent of the Hitler Youth programs marked by ideological indoctrination, and we must avoid such a scenario in our school districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jim Blue, and if you please state your name and address for the record.
Hello and good evening, Madam Chair and school board members. Thank you for letting me talk. My name is Jim Blue, 2760 West Marion Avenue, Punta Gorda. Banned. At least 300 books this year have been banned in Florida schools. Among them, Gender Queer, All Boys Aren't Blue, Tango Makes Three, Toni Morrison's Pulitzer Prize winning novel, Beloved, and Margaret Atwood's novel, The Testaments. Banned. Now, many of the banned books have LGBTQ themes or characters. Florida's Don't Say Gay law and the follow-up legislation from this year are bad laws. They are vague. They demonize teachers and they marginalize vulnerable children. It is beyond disgusting that librarians could be charged with felonies if they simply recommend books to children who have questions about gender or sex. And in erring on the side of caution, our Charlotte County schools made the laws worse. So let's fix it. For myself, I plan to work as hard as I can to get the state laws repealed. I urge our county citizens to join in that campaign. And please, please, school board members, create clear, courageous policies to at least make the laws less damaging. When it comes to our schools, our teachers, our librarians, and our students, erring on the side of caution is not prudent, it's complicit.
Thank you. Next, we have Brendan Burke, and if you please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Brendan Burke, and I live at 1701 Suzie in Punta Gorda. I was very moved by what Hal said earlier, and my comments relate to that. I've lived with my wife in Charlotte County for 12 years, and I'm here to talk about the banning of books. I want to be clear, LGBTQ youth need our support and love, not a demonstration of hate and intolerance. Make no mistake, this new policy will cause tragedy. And this relates to what Hal was saying. There will be kids who are 12, 13, 14 years old who feel completely out of place and not accepted in this community, and possibly not in their homes. Those kids reach out to their schools for literature and other information about their personal feelings. What they'll find in Charlotte County is that they aren't accepted and even their existence isn't acknowledged. Those kids are in serious jeopardy for self-harm and other terrible problems. Again, I want to be very clear. When that happens, the blood of those kids will be on the hands of this school board and its supporters. As Bob Dylan said, and I shall be released, they say everything can be replaced. They say every distance is not near. So I remember every face of every man who put me here. And believe me, when this tragedy happens, we will remember the name of every person on this board who caused this horrible thing. Thank you.
Thank you. David Morris, I don't know if he's still here. David Morris? So I'll leave. Tracy Anthony, if you please state your name and address for the record.
Tracy Anthony, 1051 Harbor Way Place, Punta Gorda. They say to do this even if your voice shakes, so here I go. Hi, I come before you tonight as a proud public education parent. I have seen the incredible work done by our teachers in our schools over the course of my children's time here. I also stand here equally concerned. The decision to send our kids to a public school was done with lengthy, deliberate comparisons, conversations with teachers, administrators, and other parents that were making the same important decision. In discussions, a high consideration to alternatives was easily dismissed when all things were measured. It was clear that the idea of public school meant engaging with people of a different background, exposure to every socioeconomic status, and most importantly, schools that are filled with teachers that pursued education as a passion, went on to attain higher education degrees, and clearly saw that learning was a path for future success. These culture war tactics and fake issues were not a part of that initial decision-making conversation. It is because they have no place in public ed. The idea that our schools accept anyone and everyone is something that I take extreme pride in. Exposing our children to other humans without labels or bigotry or hatred is a priority for most of us, not only in this community, but clearly in this room. I also believe that it is a priority for this district, and I believe it is a priority for this board. I do believe that. I know that you are successful people that have achieved so much, and I know that you hope that same success for the kids you oversee. And because I know this, I am here to express my hope and belief that you all can and will consistently assure these students that they are represented in our schools, and we are proud to have them here, and that we will be an anchor for them. So again, I'm here to ask you that despite the current legislature's attack on public education and personal identity, that our Charlotte County schools are able to rise above. Please be the light in this dark time. Set the standard that all are welcome. Establish yourselves as a district that overwhelmingly showers all of our students with recognition and inclusion. Again, I speak for many parents when I say that choosing a public education for our kids meant that there was not just an expectation for inclusion and representation, but a priority. I hope that despite the overreaching, hate-filled, and barbaric new laws being written, that we are all able to convey to each child within our school walls that they are welcome, we are proud of them, and more importantly, that they know it's okay to be proud of themselves. I look forward to hearing how we will support these students, the ones that can no longer see themselves in lesson plans, books, movies, and desk-side chats with trusted teachers.
Thank you. Next, we have Krista Terry. And if you please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have an easy question, and I would appreciate an answer to it. Last year, there was a voted in, I believe, a third-party learning, Imagine Learning LLC was their name. And I wanted to know how much the taxpayers paid for that. And also, I'd like to know how much it improved the children's learning ability that you voted in for us. That's it. Nothing else? But could I get in have somebody get in touch with me, please, about that?
Thank you. Next, we have Connie Patty. And again, if you'd state your name and address for the record.
My name is Connie Patty. I live in Gulf Cove. Something that you said, I wanted to comment on. I too was a young teenager, troubled, into drugs, into bad choices, confused. I just thank God that no one introduced these ideas to me, because I don't know, I could have gone that way as well. I'm heterosexual. I've been married 50 years, and I don't want my children or grandchildren being exposed to the things that we're talking about this evening. Books that, well, just for instance, well, I believe that you should be teaching math, reading, just like the other people have said, not social issues, and exposing young children to ideas that are in books. The book Melissa, she immersed her body in the warm water and tried not to think about what was between her legs, but there it was, bobbing in front of her. For 8-year-olds, you can be gay, I have no problem, I love y'all, but don't push it on my heterosexual children, because there is a choice nowadays. It has become a choice. They've taken God out of school. In God we trust up there. I'm so glad I learned, someone exposed me to Jesus instead of this stuff. And children are vulnerable and they're confused. And this is not okay. Morality, a republic cannot stand without morality. A republic is built with morality. They go hand in hand, and if you don't have one, you don't have the other.
Next, we have Mark Sarusco. And if you please state your name and address for the record.
Mark Sarusco, 10140 Winding River Road, Punta Gorda, Florida. I have a brief comment and then 3 factual questions which I'd like you to answer. The brief comment is the speakers who are in favor of the books being included in the library would have you believe that the books being banned, as by the way is happening in the Punta Gorda Charlotte Library, include Catcher in the Rye, Diary of Anne Frank, War and Peace, and several others which are completely ridiculous. Okay? They do not mention genderqueer. They do not mention lawn boy. They do not describe the practices which are retailed in those books. Pedophilia, anal intercourse, oral intercourse are throughout those books. They're making a mockery of the concerns of hundreds and of the vast majority of the parents in this school district by using straw men to criticize and denigrate a legitimate law which should be obeyed and which it is your authority, your responsibility to obey. And these folks are lying, simple as that. And they're using misinformation. 3 questions. I'd like to see publicized a list of the books that you found necessary to remove from the library. I'd like to know who approved their acquisition to begin with and why they were acquired, specific reasons why those books were acquired. Okay, now, I'm willing to accept any decision made by an adult. I don't care what adults do in their bedrooms, okay? When I was a teenager, I was a victim of raging hormones. All teenagers are. They don't know who they are. They don't know where they fit in. They want to fit in with the cool kids. If gay and trans has become cool, that's where they may gravitate to, incorrectly. And their parents need to have the ability to prevent that. The person who spoke as a trans needs to realize we're not talking about persecuting individuals. We're talking about boys showering. 16-year-old boy wet dreams were to shower with the girls. Now there are boys who are getting to shower with the girls. Okay? There are men who are pretending to be women who are shattering the hopes and dreams of female athletes across the country. That's wrong, and it verges on evil. And these folks are misrepresenting what exactly it is they're pushing. Genderqueer, lawn boy, all boys are not blue, are not benign. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Riley. Left. Okay. Next, we have Mike Kumbalak. And if you'd please state your name and address for the record.
Mike Kambalik from Punta Gorda, Florida. I'm going to switch subjects up a little bit here because of all the people that have jobs here, these two guys, and I don't know if there's any more, there's another one over there, have the worst jobs here. You probably all have the second worst, okay? So I'm grateful to be born in this country, not in Ukraine, Israel, the Gaza Strip. I'm grateful for the people on the board and the superintendent. While we may not always agree, we owe the respect of their position. They have an extremely tough job. Multiple people and groups here have a specific agenda, including myself. The proper education of our young people is the most critical job this community has. The superintendent, school board, administrators, teachers, support staff have a duty to make this happen. Our students are destined to become the leaders of this families, countries, and world. We owe them that ability. Knowledge, skills, disciplines to be successful once they graduate. To do anything less is a failure on our part. Yes, I have a goal and an agenda. Just like most people here, my agenda and goal is to provide our students with the best training possible so they can be successful. I believe our county is ranked 33rd out of 67. And if I'm wrong on that, I apologize. Okay. In my opinion, that's not providing them with the best possible opportunity. So we can sit here, we can complain, we can protest, we can threaten, we can harass. But what does that really accomplish? Okay. Don't we owe it to our children and our grandchildren and all the students to come together for their good? While working on my advanced degree, I had the fortunate ability to meet many successful people. Everyone said that rights come with responsibility. I want to repeat that. Rights come with responsibilities. We all hear people talking all the time about their rights, but they never talk about their responsibilities. For a society to succeed, we must come together as a team, not as individuals. Our children watch us more than we realize. If they see us arguing and being disrespectful towards each other, they learn that is acceptable behavior. Let's all be responsible, and I think we had a great meeting tonight, everyone, and show them how we can work together. I challenge everyone to work together for the good of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Leonardo Trent, and if you'd please state your name and address for the record.
Leonardo Trent, 3806 St. John's Drive, Punta Gorda, Florida. I would like to say that the school board has no obligation to have these books or LGBT content. If they chose to, the law, y'all have the rights to enforce it. Y'all can remove these books. We have 46% of students who are not proficient in reading and writing. We need to focus on that. We need to improve our test scores, have students with a career after graduation, all that sort of stuff. That's all good things that we should all be focusing on. But now instead we're focusing on the LGBT books. But there is no obligation whatsoever to have these books, and some people will say that we need these books in these libraries because the LGBT community is being bullied, discriminated, all that sort of stuff. From my experiences as a student, the LGBT community has not had a more pleasant environment for themselves than it does right now. If there is ever a group that is more bullied or discriminated, it is Christian conservatives and it is straight people. Now, it may be if you asked 20 years ago, 30 years ago, yeah, maybe LGBT people were more bullied, but no, they're not bullied. They're not bullied right now. I see all these LGBT people, and I talk to them. They're so open about it. There's a social status within the school. If you identify as gay, LGBT, or transgender, you're on the top of the social status. A lot of people will respect you. You will not get bullied for it. But if you come out as a Christian conservative like myself, you're the one that is ridiculed. You're the one that is shunned, and you're the one that is not being paid attention to, even by the school administrators who have shunned me for being a conservative and doing my cause. Have they shunned anybody who's LGBT? No, they had their constitutional rights protected like they always had, and I didn't have my constitutional rights. So protected. So there are two choices for the school board. You could either have these gay books in the library, but you have to exercise full equality and have these straight stickers, straight pride books, and protect straight people. Or second option, you cannot put any emphasis on sexual orientation, sexual identity, not play into this game at all, and just remove any books or any content from the classroom that relates to sexual orientation or sexual identity. I'm done here.
Thank you, Mr. Trent. And I believe we have our last speaker. This is Riley Colfan. And if you please state your name and address for the record.
Riley, Charlotte County. Most people that I know that choose the LGBTQ lifestyle have had some sort of hurt, pain, or rejection, some trauma in their life that has made them think that they have to choose that lifestyle. But in reality, Jesus doesn't want them to live like that. He died for them that they could live in the freedom that he bought for them. And so God just wants people to realize that they don't have to choose to live in the hurt and the pain that they've been through, but they can live in the freedom that God bought for them by dying on the cross. And so I just thank you for your time here tonight, and I ask that as you choose what you're going to do with what books people should learn their identity on, that you focus on what God would approve of, and as you make your decision that you would ask Jesus what he would like, because one day everybody will stand before the Lord and have to give an account of what they did and why they chose that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I just want to thank everybody in the room. You guys were phenomenal and fantastic with listening to everybody and being respectful. And I know all of us up here really